So the agenda for today is the following, as you may have seen in the mail. So we'll tell you a bit about the news of the research room, mostly about the next meetings that we will have. And then we have two slots for basically discussing the two main drafts now that we have. One is related to intent classification. So I don't know if Olga has joined. I'm not sure. But as you may have seen, there has been some initial discussion starting on the mailing list about processing basically the commands they received following the call for adoption, that because this draft has not been adopted, but of course they will try to revise the document according to the comment and have a new version available in next couple of weeks, I would say. And the second draft is the one that has been adopted as a research as a group document, the one with the concept and definition. And I think Laurent will give some feedback on the different comments they received and how they want to proceed in this draft for the following work. Then we have a technical presentation from Amina on slice management automation and SLA compliance. So Amina, you will have 30 minutes, as I said. If you need less, it's okay as well. As you said that it will be more than enough, but don't be don't be in a hurry for the presentation. We have time, and then we have any other business, of course. And as we discussed, I discussed rapidly with Laurent, we may also introduce a bit what will be the procedure for starting to work on the document about the AI artificial intelligence research challenge for network management. So if you have any comment on the agenda, would like to add something, just tell us, because we have allocated 2 hours for the meeting, so we have some flexibility.
Jerome, I don't know if it's only for me, but I cannot see your screen anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay, I will do again. It's better now?
It's back.
Okay. It's maybe when I come back to the WebEx to check who was online. Okay, so let's start with the next meeting. So of course we will have the next meeting as we have introduced in previous meeting in IETF in Vancouver. So now we have two hour session that has been allocated to us. So initial proposal, but it may have changed already, is Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning. I'm not sure it's still this plan because it can be changed a bit. And so then today we can discuss what will be the content of this meeting. So the initial idea was, of course, to cover the free terms that we have in the already started to discuss during, of course, the rechartering and this discussion on mailing lists and the last IETF meeting. So namely, we have IBN, of course. We have the thing related to artificial intelligence, and as has been highlighted last time in Singapore, we were also thinking about considering other network management frameworks. So this is basically the status now. This is open to discussion. We actually have a few feedback on who wanted to present. I hope we will have update on the different drafts. I know that also Pedro will make an update on his draft. Actually, it's not mentioned here, but he said that he'll make an update on his draft. So although we would like an IBN to start working on the other aspect that we have in the written in the roadmap for IBN, basically, in particular the architectural framework, the use cases, and implementation. So in addition to the drafts that we currently have. For artificial intelligence, our plan is to have more technical presentation, basically, as we have been requested also to have this from the IETF chair. Currently, we have few feedback regarding that, so we are requesting all the group to consider maybe to present something in that, or solicitate people who could present. We know that it's not the best location for people to easily come, but yes, if you know somebody who could be interested to present in this aspect, would be very appreciated. Of course, regarding AI, we'll also discuss the two other points, which are the document that we would like to have on the different research challenges, and also the status of the different competition, I would say, or AI challenge we want to have for network or network management. And then it's also open, as I said, to emerging network management framework. No, again is more, we are also looking for a presentation regarding that. So if anybody is volunteer to do, to present, just let us know. We have also in mind, maybe we can have side meetings. If somebody wants to comment the first part? Okay. So then we are thinking about side meetings. So nothing is planned yet, of course, but maybe we have side meeting on IBN, so related to basically the new work item on IBN that we have in the roadmap. We have also the maybe more, let's say, a side meeting dedicated to drafting, writing the research challenge document. And also for the last point, as before, if it's not presentation during session, maybe we can have side meeting to discuss about what will be the different orientation we should consider for the new emerging network management frameworks. So this is basically the initial plan and possible side meeting. Now we'd like to, during the meeting today, also to have your feedback regarding this proposed agenda, and to know if you have any other idea we would like to share, what could be interested to do also in Vancouver. So please comment if you want.
Jerome, just a very minor thing, because we received a request from the IETF chair to try to address some agenda conflict for the IETF meeting. So potentially it's not 2 hours, 2 times 2 hour session, but there may be one of the session that may be reduced and shifted to another slot on the same day.
Okay.
This is, okay, it was part of the process. It was an interim. It was preliminary agenda, so there are still some possible changes. And I think by the end of next week, it should be final.
Yeah, it's what I said.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it may, some modification can still happen, as I said, and
also there is remote participation possible for the meetings. So Vancouver is a bit shifted from European time, but it's still possible. To have also remote participation if some of you cannot be there on site, also to present remotely.
Sorry, I joined late. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Sorry for this. My Outlook was saying 1 o'clock, so I was getting ready for 1, so I was a little bit, thanks for reminding me. I just wanted to let you know for Vancouver, our recommendation from our HR is not to travel, so.
Okay.
In general, and so I don't know. I don't believe it will be possible for me to go up, but of course remote.
This is a situation that is evolving. We had some discussion also in Nokia and with some other companies with respect to IETF meeting, but also some other events and centralization meetings. The information I have so far is that for IETF, they stick to what they announced, that they are monitoring the situation. There is no cancellation announced as of today. There are some companies putting travel restriction for their employees. For instance, Ericsson and Juniper. Huawei has already, for several weeks, already some specific travel restrictions, especially for their colleagues from China. So this is being monitored. You have to watch the announcements that will be made by the IETF leadership teams. But I think we have the coming weeks to see how this evolves.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. And so as Laurent says, there will be remote participation possible. So maybe it's not always good with the time shift, but it will be possible.
Thanks.
Okay, so if there is no other comment for this, just move to the next one. So we have also other plan for meetings. We have requested the NOMS organization committee. So NOMS is let's say leading conference in network management, more academic, I would say. It will be in Budapest. So they agree to that we will be present there. It's we have been used to present in NOMS or IAM. But we never found let's say the right way to be there, and so we try different thing each time almost. So the idea here will be to have an introduction of what is NMRG during the plenary session, to make maybe the community aware of NMRG in order maybe to attract more people, in particular the academic people, to NMRG as well. And to have, let's say, high visibility, they also propose us to have an NMRG poster, and of course with somebody like I will be there as well, so I can be there and present what is NMRG and so on. This will be more to introduce what is NMRG and to bring awareness regarding that. And in addition to that, we have a full session, which is basically 2 hours, where we can invite speaker. So we have to prepare a program, invite speaker, and so on. That will be fully integrated into the program of the conference, so that rather than just people see NMRG on the program, they will have a real program with technical presentations that can be in their interest, and then it's also a way to bring the awareness regarding NMRG in general. Of course, for the invited speaker, we have not yet sent invitation. We are discussing a bit some logistics with the OC, but in the next couple of days, I would say we should have a final, final decision on how we will proceed to invite people. Then there is a question to have a virtual meeting in April, because not everybody can attend NOMS, of course, and I think we should not be able to provide, and it's not an NMRG, let's say, interim meeting as it is usual, and we should not be able to provide remote participation for NOMS, I would say. I'm pretty sure about that. The next event will be the IPOP conference. It's in Japan. I just put May twice, but it will be in Japan. Here we have also been invited to organize different things. One special session on IBM with a call for papers and presentation, and one NMRG meeting as a more regular NMRG meetings that will be the day before the conference. And we have been also invited, Laurent, me, and Laurent, me to make a keynote. Most probably, I will do myself. And eventually demo, but we think with Laurent it can be hard to present demo there. I'm not sure we will have the right people to do a demo there. And last event on this slide will be the next IETF. So I forgot again where it is, but it's in Madrid. I forgot to put on the slide. And here there will be, I mean, of course we don't have program there yet, but the most notable part will be regarding the hackathon that we would like to have be ready for this IETF in Madrid in July. So meaning that we have to prepare a bit beforehand, as we have already said before. So I think we have to be. We can also discuss that in the last part of the meeting, AOB, but we have maybe start to create a bit discussion group on people who will be interested to join the hackathon and see how we can advance on this point.
Jérôme, I take this opportunity because I met with Walter Cerroni from the University of Bologna in Paris this week for the ICIN conference, and we had a quick discussion on preparation of the NMRG participation in the IETF 108 hackathon. So they are making progresses in the team of Walter, plus also the team of Barbara Martini from CNIT, kind of joining their activities for proof of concept development or tool development related to IBM. So this is ongoing, and they have plans that this should be mature enough in a couple of months. And so their plan is to be able to participate to the Madrid meeting with a proposition for a kind of proof of concept and demo tools that could be subject to work in the hackathon. And in the discussion, I try also to investigate a bit around that within Nokia, if we can have also the work from Fred to be made available, but this is still being discussed. And I'm also discussing with the team of Lisandro about the activity they have on these interfaces to derive the intents, if this can also be made available in some form. This is being also, it's not clearly visible, but just to report that there are first minor progress being made to prepare participation in the hackathon. We still have to consolidate everything, but at least the first initiatives are being launched.
Okay.
Anyone willing to or having interest, of course, is welcome to contact us and provide inputs to that.
Okay, thank you, Laurent, for reporting this progress. That's good to know. And yeah, I think this was the last slide. So if there is no other comment, I think we can move to the next item of the agenda. So Olga, you are the second one in the agenda regarding the draft on intent classification. So as I said in introduction, yeah, you started to a nice work by starting to process the different comments you received and enter interaction with the different, let's say, comment author in general with the people on the mailing list. Would you like to make now a kind of update or give us feedback about the different comments you address and the feedback you receive and how you address them and so on?
Yes, okay. What I will have, just a second.
I don't know if you have some.
I will share.
Okay, yeah, you have to leave. I think if you want to share, I will let you screen.
Yes, sharing. So I don't know if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Can you see my slides? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I did. We created just a summary, but this was created prior to yesterday. So maybe there are some new things happening since yesterday. Comments that we can talk, but I'm sure that a few of us have been on the meeting. So during the initial stage, we were replying on the comments via emails directly, still hoping that the draft would be approved. But as it wasn't approved now, we kind of have to move forward and continue kind of making modifications to this version in order to be approved going forward. So we created a summary table with the comments. I have another author that Adriana Onario that would also be added to the draft that is helping as well from Huawei. And we created a summary table with comments, and then we said let's start engaging in the communication with individual comment authors, as you suggested, Lauren. So there was a proposed plan, but I'm not sure whether that is the realistic plan. To review, discuss internally on the authors mailing list first, but in fact we moved to the RG mailing list overall because that was the recommendation. We are trying to engage with individual comment authors and chairs for each of the items. First, we are trying to address the items related to the purpose, scope, and the goal of this document. You know yourself that I wasn't here from the beginning of this document. So when I joined as an author, I did some additions to this document at that stage and some review comments, etc. But the thing was that I assumed that there was agreement around the scope and the purpose, but in fact there were a lot of the questions during the review about that. So I thought we really want to focus on that first and then later to look at methodology comments or other comments. So the hope was to look at that first, and then the goal was to kind of look at if it is possible to go with the to try to make updates before March 9th. Is it March 9th is the cutoff date, or is it maybe a little bit later for the IETF 107? Lauren, is it March 9th? Or?
Yeah, March 9 is the deadline to submit the updates of the draft.
Yeah, so if we can make it to March 9, that would be our goal, but it all depends on the amount of work. And so this is the kind of table, summary table that we created. And we tried to kind of, there were a lot of communication on the emails, a lot of different comments. So we just tried to summarize it from all the emails that were received. So we identified really 9 comments as such. Sorry, the next page, it's 9 in total. And some of those comments have been sent from different authors. So the first one is really the one that we're initially focusing on, the value of the document. It looks like when we added those tables that there were a lot of conflict, confusion being added by adding those tables. We thought we were addressing, I thought in fact that I was addressing the review comments, and that the problem with the document was that there was a lot of text instead of making it in some easy to read form. And then I thought maybe tables could be as Lauren suggests, but maybe it's not the right approach. Again, maybe we can revisit that and remove them altogether. So the core, what we want to agree here is the core value proposition of the document, and then to focus on those comments first. So we had 2 candidate approaches about introduction. Like it does matter. There is an introduction now proposed in the email list, and our goal would be to agree that introduction before doing the comments. So Jürgen yesterday did say that he doesn't agree with having those tables at all, and that he doesn't have to approve and whatever. But I would still like, even if we need to remove them, that if it's possible to engage him as well, at least for the purpose, and see if there is something we can change to address his comments. For Jerome and Laurent, I would ask you to look at the introduction shared and give your opinions. If these tables are so confusing, and the goal of these tables is to show maybe how we can present all those different abstractions and try and dimensions, and try to maybe use them going forward for different POCs. And but if that is confusing, maybe we could focus on methodology and just have those tables on the website and remove them from the document, or fill them in based on what we believe is inside our intent scope for NMRG, or what's not out. So we have 2 options there maybe. So I would like to hear, like Jürgen would probably like to remove them all together and change the focus. And I would like from Lauren and Jerome to hear what you guys are thinking, and to address this comment first. The second comment, I think it was also about the relationship between the 2 drafts. And again, I thought that has been agreed before I joined I thought that the concepts and definition graph is talking about concepts and terminology, and that the classification graph would be working on the proposing some kind of classification for intents. So we did add references to the CLEM, and both from the perspective of what in definition of the intent, but also from perspective of differences with services and policies. There was, as you know, a lot of discussions in regards to that yesterday, and there are differences in opinions what is the intent definition. So I do not want to take it as a task for this draft to define the intent. I think maybe it should be inside the other draft, and we should all review it and agree. So at this point, we would refer to the existing definitions, and if there is a need to change it, I think we should have a sessions around intent definition. One of the things, like Branislav did say, that you can't really define intent until you have your knowledge base, you know, so that is a valid thing to say. I have my knowledge base, and only when I have all the information, then I can determine what my for specific domain or solution my intent is. But in that case, it's only possible to define a methodology for identification of intents. So at the end, you wouldn't even be able to have any formal definition or anything, because so I'm thinking we can discuss. I still believe intent definition is very important, and classification is very important, and then we can look at formal definitions afterwards. But please let me know. The third comment, Jürgen was saying, is it a survey? So we just said it's not a survey. So the fourth comment again from Jürgen, it was about the table. So we thought if we introduced introduction and if we introduce methodology, which is the next thing we would like to do, then tables could be used in the context of those two. But we can potentially, if majority believes that they are not useful, we can remove them. They were not there in the previous version. They were added as a result of the comments that we had at the meeting last time. Point 5, unclear how the categories in the tables have been identified, selected, and the document is missing a more rigorous approach methodology to the classification work. So we are proposing here to add the methodology section in section 5 that would propose the process, and that would also include the process for both how we initially came with this draft table, but also tables, and also how we will extend it in a way going forward by either adding or removing different things from the scope. The issue with fully knowledge-based driven would be if I have to go to the domain and I have to go and get a knowledge base for that domain. The problem for me would be that the knowledge is so big that so our tables already kind of produce outcome of that process where you looked at several solutions. You know the knowledge, you have experience, you worked on it for decades, and now you are saying this is what we believe the intent should be. Like references in terms of references, how we are proposing this, that I don't know, like there are huge amount of references, there are solutions from different customers and different, you know, China Telecom that gave their input, Huawei gave our input, like the solutions would be common between different vendors, different carriers. So, you know, it's not something that we reinvented here. But I do believe that methodology section would help, but I don't know if that is sufficient, or, you know, would like your opinion on that. But after we review introduction, we would share some ideas about what we can do maybe in that methodology section. The next comment it was about policy continuum and you know whether it fits here or whether it should go in some other document. So we have two candidate options. We can either remove it from classification document and use it in other documents, or we can expand the classification document and add better connection with the policy continuum. Maybe at this point, candidate one would be probably the better one because of the time. So if Natal Bob would agree. The next comment, number 7, is so please, if you have any comments or if you have any opinions, stop me. Sorry, maybe I should stop after each comment, but maybe we can go back because there are 45 minutes, so we can review it. But please don't be shy. So the next comment 7 is about definitions in the draft do not bring clarity in terms of differences between intent and policy. So there is a confusion that we have some sections because there were multiple authors. There are some sections 445, 46 that are using policy terminology instead of intent terminology. So we want to address that one. But we also want to refer to the CLAM, which describes differences between intents and policies. But we saw even yesterday during the discussion that it's a big topic, and there are people who have different opinions. And I personally think what we should try to do is try to agree some terms for the NMRG and some agreements for NMRG, and then try to kind of bring the highest value through the the methodologies or through the classifications, through the architectures, through the different DSLs going forward. And I do believe this topic, I've been involved with different stakeholders about this topic now for years, same as with the topics of service resource, customers facing, resource facing services. It's very difficult to always get consensus about all. So if there is a way that we can get consensus in NMRG, that would be the beneficial. And even if the declarative policy is something for somebody, but something else for the other person or for other stakeholder, I do believe it's more important to find a common ground and come up with some definition that we can agree on than whether something is perfect or not. So, but that's my opinion only. The next is from Branislav, and he is kind of quite negative. I did ask him if he would be interested to contribute, because I thought his idea about knowledge base was interesting, and that maybe if he can contribute to methodology, maybe we can get some value. But unfortunately he says it would take too much time, so he wasn't able to. But my understanding of this comment is that he thinks that you cannot define intent until you have knowledge base for the specific domain, where you can then abstract your intent from it. But it means that you can only have a process of identification. But what would your guys, Lauren, what would your view be on this comment about knowledge base driven abstraction?
Yeah, I think it's not easy to handle the way Branislav is communicating, but it's some input, some data points. Yeah, so for me, I try to reply a bit to that in one of the comments, because you pointed out that there are some inconsistency in the definition, the current definition we have in the draft, the claim draft. Because for me, it's a challenging task, because going and ending with one comprehensive intent definition, I'm not even sure it's feasible or even it's advisable to have that. But what we could have is a definition in plural that captures what are the essential characteristics of different forms of intents. And the way I will join to the comment 8 is that for sure, I mean, if we generalize too much, then we will have like a dictionary definition of what an intent is. But this is not applicable to the NMRG scope or to any scope. So it's too generic. If we want to become more specific, a bit like you have in the draft to say there are different application areas for intents, and this will derive different forms of intent or different types. And this is where I can see the link with what Branislav is trying to say, that it becomes application or domain specific, and then it's linked to the knowledge base or to the vocabulary that is used in this domain. A bit like what the discussion we can have with John Strassner about these domain-specific languages. But I think this is, for me, a bit also the, how can I say, it's the resulting, it's what is at the end of the discussion. Okay, when you start talking about DSL, you already made all the processing before that to come to the conclusion, what is the DSL I need to design or use to apply intent-based networking in this domain. But I think at the stage where we are in NMRG is try to clarify everything that comes before that point. And I think this is why we have the work in the draft on definition and the draft on classification to try to identify what are the key elements, the key characteristics, information, the intent types, what is common between the different types, what is specialized, how you need to use things, or if you have different parts in a definition, you have the user, you have the target system, you have the transformation, so different elements of the definition, how you can use those parts and what you need to do on those parts, how you specialize them, how you, maybe there are some parts you need to validate, some parts you need to provide information about. So for me, this is, you see, this first phase, before we are at the point where we can say, we will use this language, or this is the form of intent we will use. We are not yet at that point. We need to do all the processing before that. This is the work of draft definition and draft classification. And in your draft, I think what you did also is you looked at the different intent solutions. So you already tried also, when I say in my comment, when I say you did bottom up, is that you looked at some application areas and you say, if it is a enterprise network, my user is this, and my intent is in this form, and the typical target system is this. So this is domain specific, and you try to extract out of that key elements, and you put that into an instance of an intent types. And I think we need to do this kind of process. It's a bit challenging in the sense that it doesn't come so easily, but I think it will be useful at the end.
Because I agree completely, thanks, because I do believe that was my understanding, that we are starting with these two drafts, and then you will end up with one or many DSLs. You know, you may end up with DSLs per solution, per user even, you know, it's quite possible that you will have to end up, but I thought it was outside of the scope. Another comment I have about this is that, you see, if you're starting from knowledge base, as we know for our networks are huge. So what we did is we proposed subset already abstraction of that knowledge base that we believe is relevant for the intent space. But if you start from the beginning, from thousands of attributes and thousands of properties in each of those solutions, it would be much bigger exercise to do. So, yeah, okay. And the next was Jerome saying that maybe some examples would be useful. So that is a very valuable comment. And there are some examples already in some of the previous sections in the general text, but I do agree that it would be, if we are keeping the tables, if we agree that we can keep tables even in an annex or something, then we would add examples in 511, 521, and 531. So I don't know, do you want to go again through the comment by comment and then maybe see if there are any? Can we do some discussion here, or do we continue via email?
Okay, just as speaking as a person, so as I told you by email, I just returning from holiday, so I didn't have read all the email thread still. So regarding the first comment, so I will have a detailed look at what has been discussed on mailing list and provide, if needed, more feedback regarding this first comment by email. I think I will do my best to give you by mid next week. So.
Thanks.
such that you can progress as well on the draft.
And just one small comment, like in terms of the intent definition. You know, I do understand it's difficult to have a specific definition, but there is a lot of confusion, and I'm getting always what is intent, what is intent, and I've seen from so many different stakeholders that they do have different, completely different views of what intent is. So I still believe, even if it's a very abstract definition, you know, even if it is definition that we agree that it is a declarative policy, you know, the current definition. I'm not sure about the rules one that you have, but the other one, if we agree as an NMRG, this is our definition, it's still more valuable than if it is a perfect one, you know, whether we said objective or whether we said declarative policy or whether we said, at least we have it. You can send it to someone and say, this is our starting point. The starting point is that we are doing it in the way that we are saying we are looking at the user, we are looking at what user wants from the network and not how network delivers it. And it can still be a definition that is NMRG definition. And then later on, we can go and do more specific definitions and DSLs. But I still believe it is important to have one learned. Otherwise, you know, we won't be able to answer the question to the audience, what are you guys think intent is? How can we even start working on the intent if we cannot agree one sentence or two sentences around what we believe intent is?
I agree, Olga. This is for me, I mean, even if the draft has been recently adopted as a research group document, for me, this is, again, there are some content, but we still have clear work to do on, I mean, the intent definition work, but also clarifying the different underlying concepts. So for me, we are not at the end of the story. It doesn't need 1 year work, but I mean, for me, this is not a done deal. I mean, we have to produce an agreed, meaningful definition of intent in the scope of NMRG. And just comment also back to your draft on classification and the relationship with the draft on definition. We had discussion in the early stage of the documents that we wanted to keep the two documents, even if we know they are related, because we wanted to foster the content development. We didn't want to say how this should be structured first, but first put the content and then see if we need to split, merge it. So currently we are still at this stage, but I think there are a strong relationship between what the two drafts, I mean, how the two drafts gets developed, in the sense that, as you said, you have dependency to intent definition from draft claim in your document, but I think the analysis you can do in the draft classification will also be useful as input back to the definition, because
it is circular dependency, I think. Yeah,
a bit, yes. So that's why again, it's not simplifying the approach, but I think we have to see it iteratively, and as you say, it's circular, so to work together in trying to bring what is good in both, and to align our text, our understanding. So for me, this is part of the work in progress. So I see a strong relationship at this level between the two drafts. And on the classification work, because you had some earlier part of the comments on the methodology for the classification and whether we should keep the tables or how to use that. For me, just quickly some thoughts I had since a few days with the email thread and what you presented today. I think for the methodology, for instance, for me, is the methodology should be to explain to an external reader what approach you use to come to the classification. Is it based on a well-known documented taxonomy methodology? And okay, this can be it, or it can be based on a certain types of analysis, and you collect sources, you analyze commonalities of terms, etc. So it's just to document a bit the approaches. So it can be very formal or it can be just a good explanation. But I think this will be useful for an external reader to know how we ended up with this proposal. And then the use of the methodology for me is also this document when it will be finalized to be consistent, to show that there is an approach to derive the different categories. But I think it will be also useful after the document is finalized, because for me, the purpose of the classification is also that if in 2 months or if someone else comes with another application area or another smart idea about how to use intents, I want him or her to be able to insert their novelty in the classification, because it relies on some known criteria. You see, it's like if you add a new species, you discover a new species, you don't want to re-architect the entire living taxonomy. But then you can see if this is a branch is from, I don't know, mammals, then okay, you understand a bit what I say. Is because this for me will create long-lasting value to the document.
We will use something like TOGAF type or something like that, where we would just propose a process of, we will see whether it's one thing or two things, whether extension and creation should be one process, but hopefully it should be one process. So I do agree it would be valuable. And my hope is just that by adding this section, which may be 1 or 2 pages, we can address that and we don't have to rewrite the whole draft. That's my goal only, but I'll get your feedback.
Yeah, I need a bit more time to provide you with proper feedback, but at least I try to share a bit what my idea about this methodology. And for me, it's not the purpose to write a methodology section just for the sake of it. It's more to prove usefulness for the reader, have a good understanding and show rigor in the approach, but also, as I said, in the long term, if we want the classification to be extensible and to be maintained over time, I think the methodology should help into that in that respect.
So I think introduction that we added does talk about the document being used and the methodology to explain how we came up with these categories and tables or types, because we have some solutions. Absolutely, there would be other solutions. So you can spend two years now discussing, is it only these, or do we have more, or even whether these 3 are the right ones, shouldn't we have 5 instead of 3? And I don't believe this is the purpose, so this is just a descriptive way of saying that these are the solutions and actors that we are aware at the moment in the industry. And you can add new solutions, you can add new applications. In fact, for our application, we only had one like controller, but you can add new dimensions, new intent types going forward, or in your solutions you can remove some because they would not be relevant for you. Therefore, you will end up with completely different intent knowledge based on your individual product solutions or domains. And I do agree that we can try to propose some approach that could be reused both for what explain how we came up with the initial draft and how this can be extended going forward for different applications. So I do believe that is we can add that, but my only worries would be the amount of modifications to the overall draft. I would prefer that we can communicate that through addition of the section that can clarify it and good introduction, and that we don't have to do complete too many changes in the draft, because as you said, these are the initial versions. We will improve them through time. So I do believe at this point it would be more important to have 2 approved documents that people would be able to refer to, and then to work on the new versions, and or even merges if agreed. So thanks. So please, everyone, send comments and engage in the mailing list. Any comments are and also if anyone wants to contribute, or that would be great.
Just a question. This is not mandatory at all. As you may be aware, we have now a GitHub page for the NMRG. We have a policy so that for the accepted research group document, we have an official repository for the draft that is public and available. We also offer the possibility for the individual draft related to the work of NMRG to have a repository there. So my question is, since we are also entering a bit more active, I will say, evolution of the document with comments and your proposal on how to evolve this, will you be willing to have a repository on the GitHub? Is it something? Of course, you can discuss with your co-authors.
That's great, because you remember I originally created the were questions. I think Jefferson had the questions around adding it, and then I did create one on Git, but it would be better to have it on NMRG definitely than on my own one. So I think that would be excellent to do that.
We can check how to do that clean, but it could give a good reference point for the draft for everyone interested into looking into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all if there are no comments. I don't think I have anything else. Like, there were some additional comments since then, but I think we will kind of go next week when we get more comments. We'll create a new table and update and share.
Okay.
Hello,
Thank
everyone.
you.
This is Will speaking. I'm so sorry that I just finished the previous meeting, and I got a message from China Telecom, the author of actually the first author. He said he can. He said he doesn't know what happened, but he cannot join this meeting. So he wants to send his comments to the mailing list instead. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Will.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
So, is there any other comment now regarding this draft?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me? I'm sorry.
No. Generally, the people who are online. So if not, we can move to the next draft. So Laurent, you want to make some update?
Yes. So I don't have any supporting slide because this will be a very quick update. We are working with the other authors to address the comments that were raised during the adoption process, and also to address the plan we advertised to make the evolution of the document. So this is essentially to, there is some updates on the lifecycle diagram, some editing through the text that is being ongoing. We have also the aim to add a security consideration. So this is the main active discussion we have with the co-authors. This is not yet public because we try to stabilize a bit the update, but we will generate a new version very soon. And also more recently, through the discussion with the intent classification draft, thanks to that, it was spotted some inconsistency in the draft based on the different definitions, terms that we have in different places of the draft on definition and concept. So this is a new issue we have to fix probably with the next release of the draft. So I think in the next before the deadline, we hope to be able to provide a good new update of the draft in the different sections to go towards the plan we had. And we keep open to reviews and receiving additional comments how to evolve this document. This is a research group document, so we are really here to make the necessary work to bring it to a very good, stable document.
Okay, thank you, Laurent. So we move to the next point. So Amina, if you can share your presentation.
Okay, all right. the share button is sufficient, right?
Sorry, what's your question, Amina?
Okay, I have to click twice.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
So, thank you for the invitation. It's always a way to discuss our current work, mainly on network management and in the context of network slicing and automation of management. And the interest that we have in the group is to foster our comprehension and going beyond a comprehension to integrate IBN, maybe a new way of seeing IBN in network management and more in network exposure. And the objective of this presentation is first to share with you our work on, as I said, slice management with ONAP. And it's issued from two research papers published lately. One was presented in Network of the Future conference late 2019, and another one that was presented actually this week in ISIN 2020. Okay, I move in. I'm planning three sections of the presentation. So the first one will focus on the network slice lifecycle management automation. And our main focus actually is ONAP, Open Network Automation Platform. The second part, and actually it's linked, but I wanted to highlight the SLA focus, everything related to running slices and monitoring to ensure SLA compliance. And the last section is quite open with challenges for intent-based, what I want to call intent-based network exposure, because we find in the literature more things on internet-based networking and interfaces inside the network, but what we target is interfaces towards the customer, the final customer. Briefly, our definition of the operations that are inside a global orchestration layer, for example, like ONAP, goes from the request of the service with the definition of service level agreement and accompanying quality of service parameters towards the design of the slice, which is softwareized based on software composition, and the bricks are VNFs. Two different steps of deployment, placement. We also talk about instantiation. All this have different definitions, but what we want to have in mind is the a double or triple process of deployment, and then once all the software bricks are on virtualized in an environment that is capable of executing them with the right resources, then the slice can be activated, and then during the runtime, this is classical actually, but we activate the monitoring during runtime. So what we focus on actually is the deployment. As I said, it includes three steps, and the design. So the design and the deployment. And this slide shows the workflow, the main steps from the design to the slice deployment. So the first step is fully software with VNF images described in heat files, the packaging of the VNFs, and then the design of composition of them. We assume, this is actually very important, we are behind the customer. We do not have a way to have a real tool to make us make this composition. We really do our compositions assuming that we have a request. And this is our big gap, actually. So we create our service. There is a software validation. We have the requirements for each VNF, and then for the set of VNFs for the network, the global network service. So there is a software validation for having each component have its interfaces, and all components are interoperable, and the global service is a meaningful service. Then there is the Cloud OS preparation, where we create the virtualized hosting environments. We mainly use OpenStack, but we also have in our labs now Kubernetes for more agile deployments. After the Cloud OS preparation, we start the slice onboarding. So it's the set of VNFs, the global service, with creation and distribution of the services over the infrastructure with ONAP, and the actual action of putting the services using ONAP in the OpenStack environments is what we call the final step of the deployment. So these steps are inside an architecture that we are using, we're considering. So we assume there is a network orchestrator. For us, it's ONAP, but a network orchestrator with accompanying with a network slice manager. And this network slice manager can be the operator, but can be also another actor. And this network slice manager is responsible of getting the request from a communication service, or actually any service, any applicative service, high-level service, towards the network factory, network industry, guided by ONAP. So the global scheme is that, okay, we have a request, the network slice manager, so a request for a slice or for network service, and then this network slice manager asks for the right network services inside the network industry, and then a network service is composed of virtual network functions that are hosted on the physical infrastructure. And all the steps that I have presented earlier with the lifecycle are ensured by ONAP. So then the monitoring, and so the idea is how to maintain, since there is a request and it's for a dedicated service that we are deploying such a slice, we need to maintain a pre-negotiated SLA, and have the enforcement of these SLAs with policies. And here also I have something to emphasize, that from what I've read from intent-based is that policies, we need to focus on a difference between what we call policies and what we call intents. And today we are in our work, at least, we are still talking about policies and using policies. So it's not. These policies can be event-based, but they are not really what we call demand-based, and that's what we put behind, from our comprehension, what we put behind the intent. So it's not either device-specific. Yes.
Please finish. I have a more question on the slide, but you may finish your explanation first. I thought you were finished.
Okay. No. Okay. So yeah, I was saying so that it's not demand based, but it's event based. The policies that we're putting in ONAP. So we have the tools with ONAP for the monitoring, for the collecting some parameters, mainly on the resource consumption, and we're trying to put some analytics for the evaluation of the reports coming from the monitoring. Maybe if the questions are on this slide, do you want?
Yeah, it's more on yeah, sure. It's more on the first part, because the first paragraph you mentioned that there is an external entity which interacts with the various orchestration platforms for the end-to-end network slice. Just for my clarification, do you consider, because if you consider end-to-end network slice, usually you have different network domains or network segments, essentially the access, transport, and core. Do you consider that ONAP will be the one covering the different domains, or it's just one of the domains? I mean, and you will have the network slice manager will also point to the access slice manager.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. We also focus on ONAP as an orchestrator of a multi-domain network slice, a network slice deployed over multiple domains. That is for us feasible, but based on the choices that the network slice manager can make, he may choose another domain which the orchestrator is something else. And I can make a reference to a 5G Eve project, which focus on this domains interoperability with different orchestrators. And for example, partners. I can speak of Orange. We have the labs, the platforms by Orange using ONAP, and other partners using OSM. And the idea is to make that a global orchestrator. There is a way to deploy the slices on these different domains, even if each domain has its own orchestrator. But for us, it's also possible to have different domains managed also by ONAP.
Okay, thank you. It's clear.
It integrates this cross-domain management. So we I was going to say I've already presented some ontologies that we have included actually in the definition of network slices, and here it's a big picture of design time and runtime phases of what we call ONAP compliant. Actually, we defined an ontology for web ontology for network slices compatible with what ONAP is capable of supporting. So there are already modules defined by ONAP for the design time. On the right, and it's linked directly to the modeling. At this phase, we are modeling the slice template, if you can call it this way. But this modeling considers all the elements from the customer and from the provider. From the customer side, There is mainly the request. A request for the network slice, a request for a network service, actually, and the SLA. And the provider is the one who will define then the policies, find the right network functions. Actually, the customer, depending on his profile, would say more or less things on the network service. He can go into details of network functions, if his profile allows him to do so, or just ask for global network service to support his application service. So the provider here has more entities involved in the modeling, mainly everything related to policy definition. And we assume also that he is the one owning the VNFs and PNFs descriptors. And then at the runtime, after this design, composition, so there's after the modeling, the cool animation here is the creation of the model, and then the deployment. And as it's a cycle, well, it's supposed to be a loop, as I showed on one of the first slides. We are supposed to take into consideration any changes, either that comes from the monitoring, so like alerts or things that to which we need to reconfigure, for example, or modify or add for scaling, or for example, if less resources, if the SLA towards the infrastructure is not respected, then these are things, alerts that comes from the monitoring. But we should be also able to take into account new changes in the service itself. For example, if the customer is capable of asking for a new algorithm for authentication, for example, or any other network function more specific, then we should be able to add it into the chain, into the slice that is already deployed, and reconfigure if necessary. And also change the policy and enforce it for the global service, for the network slice, if necessary as well. There's you can see here a component that is very important, which is CLOMP, which is control loop automation for control loop automation. Sorry, I forgot the MP. What was the MP for? But it's the monitoring. Sorry, so it's the loop for the control, and this work is very important. It's ongoing. There are many gaps that we have identified in ONAP to ensure that we can do all the things that we are saying here to integrate both changes and be really, actually it's like a map loop. So it's monitoring, analysis, planning, and execution. It's exactly this. And the knowledge base is the active and available inventory on the right side, on the top right side. But this inventory is not enough alone. So we also added databases for the network services. So we have a database for the resources and a database for the network services. And here, so to illustrate, and you can find it also in the paper, a little references. We have considered a mobile core network provided by Beacon, if you know Beacon, which is an institute in France, and the components of the VNF have been deployed based on the models we have described. The descriptors also have been modified to cope with our ontology proposed in the previous work, and the deployment of all these components with a separate data and control planes which is also included in the developments of the VNFs themselves, which is a huge work actually in the design. We can call it an offline design phase. So it's not based only on the composition, but it's the functional decomposition. When we go from the 3GPP functional descriptions towards more modular functions, this work is really a huge work. What we are doing on 5G is to look at the specifications, not going from the code itself, but going from the theoretical description, from specifications, and developing the components to go with 5G modular functions to cope really with the challenges that we want to express here. So it was more to illustrate and also to make sure our lab on the automation of network slice. So these are the example of network slice that we're showing often. Private mobile core network. We also have the access actually from Open Air interface. But what we what we wanted to include is this definition of customer-facing service and resource-facing service. So the network slice manager have two ways of expressing, and we believe that it's in this layer that our intent-based exposure should be developed and implemented. So regarding the SLA, we again, well, so it's an SLA regarding the infrastructure. So the automated loops that we have allow us to check the needs of our service as defined by the designer. So here, the provider of the network service. So we know how much resources, all types of resources we need for the global service based on each VNF, on the links as well. And we are clients of the infrastructure. But we do not forget that the network service has also a client, which is the application service. And here, the work we do is not very, how do I say, it's, we assume that an application service is asking for this bandwidth, for this speed rate, for this, we're giving this availability, for example, we're giving the requirements actually, but we express them in the way we know. We are experts of the network and we know how to express them. The difficulty is to find a way to give the user a way to express his need without knowing anything of the network or even network services. So here, the work we've done on policy-based SLA compliance is made regarding, so mainly scalability for the mobility management here, for example, is regarding the infrastructure. And if we're owning the infrastructure, then it's quite easy. But if not, then there should be also here an intent-based layer that would allow a network service to ask for the right resources in a very abstracted way from the infrastructure. But our focus, as I said, is the client. What can I say? This is a detailed picture of including the use case that we have considered. So the 4G core mobile network, and with all the descriptors and the stakeholders, the customer and the provider. And this is just the description of the whole slide, and all this is considered for the deployment and mainly for the monitoring. And we were triggering two scenarios, so scaling up and a scale out of the VFC. Sorry. I don't know if it's very interesting to present this slide, but this is our a picture of the lab, the open lab you have in Orange using OpenStack.
Can I just ask, sorry, do you mind if I just ask one question about your previous slide?
No, please go ahead.
So you are not looking at forwarding graphs here, is it? You are just looking at functions and slices. No. So you are looking at sets without forwarding graphs.
They are if there is only one here. I can say it's an easy example because we only have one graph, one chain.
Yeah, but even in the previous slide, where you were showing the model, you had network service with virtual function and policy, but I didn't see kind of forwarding graphs or graphs of network services. So are you starting with set only? So you're starting with set only, is it?
Yeah, it's only one chain. It's one set of VNF. So yeah, this picture of OpenLab, and this workflow is one actually. It's a zoom of what I presented on the lifecycle management, and the design here is more detailed. So it's on the model itself, or on the VNFs themselves. Some things were developed by Orange, other things by the community in ONAP, and the design, as I said, is a very software validation phase. The testing then is a test of interoperability, so that all the VNFs are compatible. The whole set, actually, it's an open source, so everything is on the GitLab. You have the link here. It's reusable. We have reused actually things from the community. And then once the composition is verified, certified, then because the descriptions actually comes from the VNF providers, and once the global service is created and submitted, there is a test of the service to show that it really does its own functionality. The governor, actually, it's linked to the license, and how to distribute the service so that the operator that is owning the license to use this VNS, and then actually the installation of the service is more detailed than one step. Also, I don't know if it is good to go into such details for the platform, but this is just some snapshots from the VNS that have been onboarded. So the 4G core control plane and data plane with some functions from the OpenAir interface on the access mainly. So there are other functions, but the ones that are dealing with the use case. Then we show the networking, the links that are between these elements of the control plane. So you can see the elements from 4G core. The validation, for example, you can see here certified. Validation goes with the description of the software itself, and then its interfaces, functional, and testing the control and the data plane. So it's not how I say it's not a functional validation of each function, because this is done as a development, but more a way to ensure that the design level, the software design level in ONAP is correct. each component has its links as defined in the template. This is actually a zoom with an added security element at the axis. Also some examples of the composition. And then once they are, this is the design validation. So once validated and certified, they are in the catalog of the. Well, here it's on app, so it's a catalog for the deployment. And once on, actually, we've tested the attachment of the user to the chain, to the slice, and we can see that status is on here, with also the UEs attached. What I wanted to, and maybe how can I say? So this slide is from Walter, which is in the next room. Actually, there's a parallel meeting, and the idea I wanted to show this slide as the main part here is the automated resource management and orchestration platform, which we consider as being ONAP for us. And there is here, okay, a user admin, but for us, it will be this customer layer. And the customer layer can be folded into two. So the network management, network slice manager or network service manager, and the client itself. And here, well, from my point of view, the intent-based programmable North-Byte interfaces are mainly used for exactly the interfaces with the infrastructure, these controllers from network or cloud, from infrastructures, IT or network, and it's well, it's a name, it's networking, it's intent-based networking. And for us, the more higher we consider this intent concept, the more it makes it easy to talk, give the hand to clients to talk, or give the voice to clients to talk. So I'm taking back this picture. So we're absolutely new to the intent definitions, and what we hope from getting with the group is to have orientations to develop some methodologies to define maybe abstractions. What we know today is descriptions of VNS, descriptions of global services, but how can we trigger them? How can we present them in a very simple catalog to end users? For example, we can model with, we're working also actually on modeling the profiles of the users. Profile of, it can be just three families of users, but let's start small. And based on the requirements, for example, on the range of requirements, and how these, how the clients can ask for a network slice or network service without getting into any details of even slices, actually, only network slice, I mean, not network service, sorry. So this is our big question mark. And we're just starting to work with this. We're also working on this with Nokia to define the right abstractions. Having event-based. Event-based is okay because it's not a sequence. It's not fixed as a sequence. But if it's demand-based, then it's much better. And moving from intent-based networking, so we're less interested, very much less interested into a lower level intent integration application, but more to the network exposure based on intent. So as I said, the multi domain here is also at all levels can be considered, but the multi domain can be triggered by ONAP or by another orchestrator in order to fulfill the network the request for network service. So actually, I don't have more slides. So I was writing some I was trying to make a big picture of our questions, but didn't manage to finish. But I think my main messages I delivered my main messages. So if you have questions, and I will be glad to have discussions on how we can move forward with your expertise on the subject.
Thank you, Amina, for the presentation. So speaking more as a participant, on the last part where you I'm curious about the group can help. I think it will be first point will be to maybe list some of the key points to address. I mean, go to the first next level of detail behind your questions to the group, so that it will be maybe easier to track the scope of what where we can help. On the when you were mentioning this network slice level for the intent, I know this is also a joint work with some of the teams in Nokia, but I think there is another team, the one with Sabine and Fred, that have been working on intent for network slicing. They have presented a demo last year in the group. So they made some hypothesis on how to use the network slicing templates and map it to a kind of intent-based interface. So I think this could be a starting point also for discussion about the linking intent and network slice. These are our first tracks that we can follow.
Okay. Yeah, I've pushed in the meeting. Where was it? No, yeah. Well, it was in April, but some questions on the cross-domain management with intent-based. Actually, it's not far from that, but maybe it's now the time to maybe merge the two questions, the two set of questions into one and present them to the group.
Yeah. And also because you mentioned this exposure framework, because for me, there are clearly in how you presented, it's you go from the customer request to create a slide out of the template and instantiate the slice. So I think there are some elements of answers that could be investigated in the research group on the forms of those intent and what are how it can be supported. But to relate to what you mentioned about this exposure framework, I think this can be a very important component in the intent functionality, so that if you have an intent, I mean, an incoming intent expression, I want to do something with my infrastructure. There is an important step of mapping or matching the parts of the intent to the capabilities of the infrastructure in terms of functionality, in terms of performance, in terms of topology, etc. So I think there is also things that can come from your work on the exposure framework as a functionality in the intent architecture, to say these are the capabilities of what is underneath the interface, the intent interface, and then we can go into kind of when we have this intent translation, there needs to be ways to understand what I can use in my infrastructure to fulfill the request of the intent. I don't know if you see what I mean.
Yes.
So I think, you see, there are questions about when you go top down, how to express an intent and what will be the mapping to the elements related to slices. But I think on the other hand, there is also a step where the capability exposure framework needs to push up, advertise what are the capabilities in the form of a graph or a catalog, whatever, and then these capabilities are used in the mapping function to understand the elements coming from the slice request up to what kind of capabilities it can be mapped.
Actually, the work on putting all the resources, the exposure, you're right. So there's we already considered, I didn't present this here, but in other works, the exposure of the network towards let's say the application, and the resources, other resources towards different management frameworks, infrastructure management frameworks. So actually, we consider this dual exposure. Yeah, so it's a good point.
Just ask a question from a perspective of what you consider to be intent. You are focusing on slicing only. What about other potential types of intents, like some kind of operator or planner, you know, the intents of the planner or intents of the operator when doing some maintenance operations? Is that completely outside of the scope and the focus is on the slice only? Or do you see other types of intents as something that you need to prioritize?
As a main view, we were looking at the exposure of network functions globally, so it's network services. Actually, if it's slices or not, it's not that important, but we're going towards this full virtualized core and access network. So it's in the context of network virtualization, and the value we're pushing is, okay, a network service is a network slice. But we, from the work, from the project we're working in, it's this view, right? The other way to see things, if I understand, is, for example, a request for an operation and not mainly for a functionality. Is this the other view?
I'm thinking from our perspective, we are saying, okay, if intents are for different users, there are different intents. Okay, this is the intent for the user who needs a network slice, but there are the users who would, you know, administer business policies, security policies overall on the network.
Yeah.
That you would need to do the heavy design of your service, you know. So there is a strategy intents potentially, the ones which would include how you some composing policies and things like that, or higher level. Don't want to use the term policy now. So from that perspective, I'm not asking maybe just about your project, but as ONAP as a whole, if you are familiar, whether they are considering those as intents as well, or whether it's just a slice.
Yeah, I'm not sure ONAP itself is focusing on. I mean, we're using ONAP in a global context of exposure, but for sure, if it's security or even monitoring, for example, can be defined as a function in a catalog, and then the intent will trigger to call such a function. So I'm just thinking loud. So maybe it's not that different. And after all, slice is nothing. Well, it's nothing. The slice is empty, and we will be putting the functionalities that are requested in it. So if the slice is 100% security functionalities, then why not? Or 100% management functionalities, then maybe different monitoring systems. Then
For example, if you have something
globally,
like in your case, in your project, if there is some request from the user, ensure that slices originating here or here don't go, or ensure that these kind of base stations have these kind of so something that is not per specific slice, but something that is more generic for the network, requirements from the user for the network as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There are requirements that accompany the supporting function. So, the same function can have very strict requirements at one use case on one slice, and can be very on its best effort in another slice. But all this is not yet structured well in our concrete outcomes. So there are things that exist here and there, but it's not that well structured yet. And also the languages, in which languages can we write this? What format? What data models? We're using what we have from open source and from what we can develop internally. But there are different questions actually that remain open. But the time it takes to go and develop the tools that allow us to have the right abstractions. This is maybe a big challenge actually in the functioning. But it's interesting actually to set and put all these questions. Even if actually in some other groups, well, it's not groups but projects, we focus on the separation of so each it's like separation of concern to tackle the abstractions, to have the abstractions. It's just the beginning, but we're trying to have this approach as well.
Thank you, Amina, for your presentation. And
you're welcome.
So just before I forgot, may I ask you and also to Olga to send the slide you presented during the meeting so that I can put on the data tracker?
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you. So we still have, I think, 5 minutes until the official end of the meeting. With Laurent, we wanted to make you some update on the network AI challenge document. So we don't have progressed so much until now. I don't know if you recall the last status, but the idea is that we identify in the previous IETF meeting different challenges that could serve as a basis in different basically section of the document, different challenges that we are regarding For example, the problem of having data, the problem of taking action, and not only doing analysis and so on. And then once we define the structure of the documents, this outline, then also we'll have some, let's say some use case or scenarios to illustrate also the different challenges and why we are not yet at the point to really solve the challenges. Of course, with doing also a bit of state of the art and survey what are the current proposal and until which point they are currently. So we will have to have this more concrete, let's say, outline or draft of outline ready almost, I think, beginning of the year. Unfortunately, I personally did not have enough time to do because I promised to do it, but I will of course work on it as soon as I can, and I hope in the next week to do that, and then I'll share with people who express their interest into participating to writing this document. As we think that once we have some kind of outline that is drafted, even if it can evolve, that should be easier for people to contribute.
Jérôme, as we discussed, I think it's we received several expressions of interest to participate to such an initiative. I think what remains to be seen is how we want to drive it. I mean, and I don't want to prescribe any specific approach, but I will suggest that, I mean, having a way so that several people can contribute easily to provide inputs, feedback on the, or even suggest some challenges, and then there are maybe some others that try to organize it into a meaningful structure. I mean, we should try to lower the bar so that people can contribute easily, because we have some contributors that are not so used to write a draft or even use the IETF tools.
Of course, yes.
But I think on the other hand, we have also some people that are active in the research group or in IETF and that are expecting this to be visible or accessible in some places, not only like a Google Drive document or as a work in progress as a publication. So I think we need to find a way to support both. Don't have a clear answer now, but as we discussed, I think this should be, I mean, I think people are ready to help. We should maybe just give them the opportunity to.
So maybe my idea that I have in mind, Laurent, but of course it has to be discussed. As you say, we don't want to force some kind of approach. Is that I understand the need for the visibility and that a draft can be a good way, but as a first point, maybe as a kind of Google Doc or whatever, just to maybe share what would be the challenge that you think is important with your different participants. Just ask for a simple paragraph, and then of course we can do the editing, maybe to consolidate the different challenges and starting to do a more concrete structure of what could be the draft. I don't know if you see what I mean. Just asking people what are the important challenges for you. Just write a small paragraph for each of them, and then we can try to consolidate. Because of course, then there will be some effort to do to have something integrated all together. But I'm not sure we can start directly with writing a draft. It's my point.
Okay. Do we have other items we would like to discuss, or maybe from the group?
Okay.
So if there are no further comments or things to discuss, we are at the end of our meeting.
So thank you all for participating. Yeah, we are at the end, and hope to see or talk to you soon in the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.